Hey guys, John P here. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 4 watches that actually surprise buyers. That's right, watches that when collectors thought about buying them, maybe there was something holding them back, but after they put the watch on their wrist or after they started to own the watch, they were just surprised because it was not what they thought it was going to be and it was actually much better. Now, this is kind of a response to my last video where I talk about some watches that actually kind of disappoint buyers and I provide the reasons. So this is going to be kind of on the flip side, and it's inspired by a watch I recently just added to my collection that I'm excited about. I'll talk about it on the list in just a second. But also, guys, please do not forget to go over to delraywatch.com where we buy, sell, trade. We have so many cool new watches that we've been working around the clock to bring in for you as well. We are on a bit of a buying spree, so if there is a watch that you'd like to free up in your collection or trade up into something, now is really not a bad time. So without further ado, the first watch we're going to talk about is a Vacheron Constantin Overseas Generation 2, which is actually on my wrist, a recent addition to my personal collection, the black dial version of the Gen 2 Vacheron Overseas. Now, Holy Trinity brand, very well respected brand, but the thing about this particular watch is it's about 42 millimeters in size, and so for a watch that's a stainless steel integrated lug design sport watch, this can seem overbearing. It can seem far too large for most people unless you just like to wear a much bigger watch. But interestingly enough, what surprises people about this watch, it's not necessarily the quality, the fit, or the finish, even though I think that is such a great selling point. In my personal opinion, when you put this watch on your wrist, it feels a lot better on the wrist than something like the Nautilus, the Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711, which is a watch that I mentioned in my previous video of being a little bit disappointing and lackluster when it comes to the bracelets. Now this actually is quite the opposite. When you put this watch on your wrist, the bracelet is probably one of the more comfortable bracelets I've ever had on a sport watch ever. It's kind of an interesting feeling, but what actually surprises people about this watch is although it's 42 millimeters, the way that the lugs kind of come down, it can fit on much smaller wrists. So the 42, they measure it kind of diagonally on the case, which is something watch brands do, but it's surprising that it wears smaller, and so collectors will see the 42 millimeters and they'll be kind of pushed away or they'll be off put at that size thinking, whoa, this is going to fit like a Panerai on a bracelet, right? But it actually doesn't. It fits much smaller, and it's such a surprising feeling, and I think it's one of the better buys in integrated sporting watches today. If you're a fan of the Gen 2 Vacheron Overseas line, leave it in the comments below. Now that takes us into another interesting watch that I've personally owned, though moved on with it because it didn't really fit my lifestyle, and this is going to be the more recent version of the IWC Portugueser chronograph. Now, this is a watch that will impress and surprise the purists out there, the people that only buy Patek, Rolex, or the like. There are many people that still kind of think this way, though things are changing, and it's because of watches like this. Now, when I was wearing this IWC Portugueser either last year or the year before, it's hard to remember at this point anymore, right? It kind of seems like all the days flow together. But nonetheless, when I was wearing this watch, I had the green version, and other collectors would say, whoa, that's impressive. What is that? I'd let them hold it, and they were truly impressed. There was a period of time, maybe 10 years ago, where IWC, especially with their Portofino line, kind of watered it down. The watch cases were not as sharp and as pronounced on some of the features like the lugs and kind of the angles as they are today. And so when I started, kind of handing out the watch and putting it on people's hands, they tried it on their wrist, everyone pretty much fell in love with it. They loved the dial. They loved that it was still kind of classic, but a little bit modern. And I just had so much feedback and so many compliments from people that don't even know watches that really just loved the look of it as well. So this watch, the IWC Portugueser, the most recent version, it just seems to impress people and they don't expect it from the brand. Things are changing. I like IWC. Let me know what you think, comments below. Now that takes us into a watch that so many people are talking about currently, and it's for a good reason, but it's from, again, a brand that has been overlooked just really because of the price point, in my opinion, and this is going to be a Tissot PRX Now they have two sizes with the automatic version now. They have the 35mm version, which wears a little bit bigger, which is surprising, but they also have the larger version as well. And the price points are $695 and $750 US, $750, $695. And the thing about this watch is it just impresses people. They don't expect it to be of the quality, of the presence, of kind of just the feeling sometimes you get when the watch just checks off so many boxes on the list. There's almost sometimes this feeling of, wow, they really hit it out of the park, but you'd have to kind of think about all the things that kind of mix so well to make just a great wearable watch, as well as a watch that you can look down and just kind of be impressed a little bit, feel nice about just the way it comes together on your wrist. And that's the PRX at Delray Watch. The guys in the office, they all have the PRX. I thought about getting one myself, but I just, at this point, I just wear a handful of watches that I kind of am tied to. But all the guys in the office seem to be wearing the PRX watch, and they love it. People love it. It's a watch to consider, and I think they really did a great job. So it surprises people, and I have never yet found someone that is not happy with a current gen PRX. If you are, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know why. And last, this is taking us into a watch that I haven't seen out there for quite some time. It's on the market, but we used to get these in at Delray Watch when Richemont was kind of blowing these out. This is the Ralph Lauren sporting line. Now, I know people are thinking Ralph Lauren, oh, this is Polo, these are going to be fashion watches. But interestingly enough, there was a line, and Ralph Lauren still does have some watches out there, but they're not as highly produced as they were with this particular line. They had these sporting lines in time only or maybe time date, as well as a chronograph version. And they also had a world time, which used the same world time movement that the JLC world time watches contain, and also the chronograph movements. They were using the same type of JLC movements for these chronographs, and they were using Cartier parts and cases, and these watches just screamed quality. You'd look at the pictures and you'd say, that's kind of quirky, whatever, and maybe it wasn't worth the price to you. But now these watches, especially for the non-complicated examples, can be had on places like Chrono for $1,200, $1,300 US. And for the quality you get in these watches, truly, it is a great deal. I mean, these are good. If you slapped any other brand from the Richemont house on these watches, these would be retail $7,000, and they might have been as well. I never saw one of these sell at retail. But that's probably just because people also thought they were fashion watches, and that's what leaves collectors surprised. I know a bunch of collectors that do have one of these variations just laying in their collection because they liked it when they put it on their wrist. And that's what is sometimes so cool and great about watches, is it's not always just the pictures or the specs. There's something that happens when you put the watch on your wrist. Maybe it wears smoothly on your wrist. It's comfortable. You like the way the light hits it in the sun. These things can really not be conveyed in a spec sheet, a data sheet, a PDF on a brand's website, or a picture in a studio. It has to be experienced. And that's what's so cool about watches. We can all kind of come together in the comments section and chime in with maybe a surprising watch that either grew on you or you experienced it and it was just different than you thought. I'd love to see it and hear it in the comments below. Guys, once again, please do not forget to check out Delray Watch, where we buy, sell, and trade. And we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P.